All right, we're getting rolling on the Krueger Show. Hope everybody's having a phenomenal Wednesday, March the 22nd, as we get things rolling. We're going to talk a little NFL draft. We're about a month away from the draft. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out. 2 locations. They're in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday. They're in Corte Madera, open 7 days a week. Get the brisket chili. It's all phenomenal. Pig and a Pickle, thanks to Damon and Mary, the owners of Pig and a Pickle, for being a proud sponsor of the Krueger Show. All right, back by popular demand, Eric Froton, who's a great follow at CFF or CF Froton, I should say. I caught him in Roto World breaking down, wide receivers, quarterbacks. We had a whole segment a few weeks back prior to the combine where we kind of broke down the entire quarterback class. And Eric is back with us to today talk a little bit about an area where I know the Niners are going to hit in the draft, and that's edge rusher. They brought in Javon Hargrave as a free agent, Javon Hargrave. They said goodbye to Charles Omenihu, Samson Ebukam, and Jordan Willis in free agency. All 3 of them left, so that's a lot of quality depth out the door, and that means almost assuredly that the Niners are going to hit the edge class in this draft, of which I'm a huge fan, maybe multiple times in a month from now when the draft is held. Eric, good to see you, man. Thanks for your time. Always love your breakdown. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here, Crew. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let's get right into it. The Niners, it's like they looked at the free agent market, and they may have looked ahead at the draft class, and they said, you know what, let's sign Javon Hargrave, give him $84 million, 20 plus million a year, take him away from the arch rival Eagles, spend your money on the tackle. And unfortunately, that kind of meant that they had to wave goodbye to all their quality depth at defensive end. But fear not, because this may be one of the best edge rusher classes I've seen in a while.
Yeah, this edge rusher class is so deep. My gosh, just trying to put together a top 15. I find myself cutting, like, who is it going to be between that? There's 10 guys I have to kind of whittle down there. So just in terms of depth and really diversity of what's available, if you're looking for the larger base defensive end who is trying to set an edge and, have an element of physicality to him, well, there's Tyree Wilson, and there's Miles Murphy, and there's Keon White, and there's, Ebuare. So you have your pick of the litter there. Or if you want to go, as you kind of talked about on Twitter, on the wide 9 variety of, a true 3-4 outside linebacker type, well, you have Nolan Smith, you have BJ Ojolari, obviously Will Anderson, who will be most likely the first defensive player taken. So there are options for you depending on what you're looking to stockpile.
No question. And let's just get right into it, because and not every edge rusher, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Every scheme's a little different. Mm-hmm. If you're running a 3-4 and you want your edge rusher to be a stand-up guy, maybe you're going for somebody in the 230, 240 range who's got that unbelievable speed off the edge, like a Nolan Smith from Georgia. The Niners seem like they go for guys who are a little bit bigger, like, in that 260 range, maybe 270. So you have all kinds of different options in this class, and there's a lot of really good ones. Let me first go with the question: how many edge rushers do you think wind up going in round 1?
That's a good question, because you have to say that obviously, you go with the obvious. Will Anderson's going. Lucas Van Ness is going. Nolan Smith, I'm pretty confident. Obviously, Tyree Wilson for Texas Tech. So I feel like they're all going. You can toss in Miles Murphy as well there. I think you'll see BJ Ojolari as well. So I'm going to go with those 6. Frankly, BJ Ojolari, who is, he might be a little small for the preferences we've seen from San Francisco. He's right around 248. He checked in at the combine. 245 to 250 is what you can expect him to live around. And but the diversity and what he brings to his pass rush packages is, frankly, what I think the best in the class. It depends, as you said. Do you want the bigger version of a defensive end and more of the base 3-4, the the defensive end type or the outside linebacker type. It all depends, again, in the eye of the beholder. But when it comes to just the pass rush acumen and the toolkit that he's thrown out there, it's you don't know what you're getting from down to down with Ojulari. You're like, what's it going to be? It's such a diverse range. I love to watch guys like that.
So you have Will Anderson from Alabama, who's incredible. Tyree Wilson, who's a bigger body guy, 6'6", 271 from Texas Tech. Miles Murphy, who Bruce Feldman had in his preseason freaks list. He's a crazy athlete out of Clemson, 6'5", about 260. So those three, did you say Nolan Smith? And then
definitely Nolan Smith. Yeah,
Ojulari. And who's the sixth?
And, Tyree Wilson. And I think those guys, Edibari will probably go, but he's kind of a tweener between 3-tech and outside linebacker now, or, a base DE, because he's 282 pounds, but he ran the most freakish 40 in the history of any defensive line player at the combine, according to relative athletic score metrics. He ran a 4.49. That is, at 282 pounds, that's unheard of. It's not done. So you could see him put on a little bit of weight and to be just a absolute wrecking ball in the 3-tech, as opposed to, having a guy at 282 cornering like the way he does on the edge. It all depends on what they want to do. He could slide in, and maybe Keon White too, who's kind of a ball of clay, converted tight end from Old Dominion, went over to Georgia Tech, and at 290 pounds, playing defensive end and lining up on the edge, that's a very rare specimen. And though he's raw, the physical package is just so much to behold. You could see him, based on potential, slide it.
Let's talk about three guys. I want to talk about the bigger guys up front, the guys who may be able to play inside, but also may be on the edge because they move that well. And there's three guys in this draft that are very, they're kind of, I guess you could call them tweeners because they're kind of in that in-between size. But, man, when you flip on the film, all three of these guys just absolutely jump off. You mentioned Lucas Van Ness, 6'5", approaching 275 pounds. If you look at him, he has a build very similar to Nick Bosa. I mean, he's got the six-pack. He's got the, he's really spent a lot of time working on his body. He's a redshirt sophomore. He was very productive on one of the nation's best defenses. Van Ness, I got to get your thoughts on. The other two guys, Kalijah Cansey from Pitt, who was just, they list him at 6'1", 280, redshirt junior. He's just a crazy great talent. I don't know exactly where he fits. All I know is I'd want him on my team. And then the other guy who I saw him in the workouts at one of the All-Star games, and then I saw him do the workout at Indy, and I thought, wow. And that's the Northwestern kid, Adetomiwa Adebawore, I think is how you pronounce it. He's crazy, too. He's 6'2", 280, 285, but just ridiculous functional strength. I saw him just bull rushing. I was at the Senior Bowl or the East-West game, just bull rushing those all-star offensive linemen into the lap of the quarterback. It was just awesome to watch. Give me your thoughts on those three guys. Where does Van Ness go? Where does Cansey go? Where does Adebawore go? Are they all first-round picks? Are they late firsts? Any chance they fall at all in the draft because they're kind of tweeners?
Yeah, well, I'll start off with Cansey because at the combine, he tested with the DL group. I think that's kind of, even though he's 6'1", I do think that low center of gravity, similar to how Moro Ojomo, another defensive lineman from Texas who's on the shorter side but has really long arms, I think that kind of works to his advantage, having the ability to be low right out of the gate and have this sort of amazing twitch and quickness that you see out of Cansey. It's funny watching him in Indianapolis run. They go through the entire defensive line group and you see them all, as they're watching them, and you see them with these big guys, the IDL group, there's a lot of weight. Their body's moving as they're running that 40 time up and down. Like this they're huge men. With Cansey, everything was tight the way he's running. And he ran one of the fastest 40 times, literally the fastest 40 times, I think, in the history of the DL class. It was simply amazing. But the way he's running, you see, he's 6'1", 280, and There's no excess skin or anything. He is a fully packed, formed human being. That sort of body type, I think that is going to be pigeonholed for 3-tech duty, and then he could be a real problem when it comes to penetrating. He's not going to 2-gap or eat a lot of blocks, but like his ability to penetrate is going to play at the next level. When it comes to Van Ness, in 2021, he played almost exclusively 3-tech at Iowa. And as we know, with Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa, history, they have one of the longest tenured head coaches in all of college football. And they're big on seniority and, paying your dues and having a sequence of, all right, the next man up, seniority guys play, and you work in. So that's why you got the knock on Van Ness about, oh, well, he only started X amount of games. And it's because of that. Just it's the tradition thing in college, and say we will, but in 2022, they seem to move him around a lot more. 227 snaps on the outside, 172 on the inside, 59 over tackle. So they learn, like, hey, we have an absolute freak of nature on our hands. We have to use him every way we possibly can. We're kind of restricting him by just keeping him on the interior, running through the A and B gaps. We have to go and split him outside. And when they did, he was he was dominant on the inside anyways, but he was purely destructive on the edge, and just major bull rush. And his first step, just for 270 pounds was just elite. And good luck once you get, he gets his hands on you. He's like a berserker when it comes to his approach. He's just going through. He wants to rip through those blockers. The finesse is a bit lacking. It's not the pretty technique that you're going to see with a guy like Ojulari or something like that. But my gosh, in terms of his ability to be just damaging and finishing plays, he is right where he needs to be. And I feel like he'll go in that 8 to 12 range is where I think he'll ultimately end up. I think that's pretty much where he's pigeonholed. And that's, and as we discussed in this edge class, that's not enough. That's incredible draft capital. And then lastly, Adebawore, as I touched on a little bit, amazing thing about him, in addition to that 4.4940, which was the 10th fastest edge time in the history of the NFL scouting combine.
At 280.
At 282, which is 20 plus pounds heavier than every other edge player that tested ahead of him, and the other 10 edge players. Those guys are all 260 or less, all right? He's 282, and he's running at 449. It's mind-boggling, all right? It's on par with that Jordan Davis performance we saw at 350 where he ran that 4.65 last year. It was just insane. So it shows the athleticism. But then, look, that's just the combine. That's the finishing school. We saw him show out, as you mentioned, at the Senior Bowl against the best of the best, and he was giving hell to every single offensive lineman he went up against. And they're already at a disadvantage, the offensive lineman, because it's a one-on-one situation. He doesn't have help on either side. It's not, an apples-to-apples comparison of what he'll be doing at the next level. But, hey, in a raw, primal setting where you have to stop the man in front of you from getting to where he wants to go, Adebawore was as good as anybody on the field, sincerely. So, does he go to 3-tech? Does he stay on the edge? I think they probably try him at the edge, despite the fact he is 6'2", which that the length concerns will be, more pronounced at the NFL level, supposed at the Big Ten. But he's a guy where once he gets around you, once he corners, and runs the hoop, he corners like a sports car. He turns that edge once he gets that, he clears, the outside shoulder of the offensive lineman. He stops and he darts immediately into the backfield. Just rare sort of agility from a guy at 282. I really like what we see from him. I think I want to see him try out edge before they bump him inside.
Yeah. I mean, it's like my biggest question about Adebawore is just where exactly does he fit? I mean, he doesn't necessarily look like an edge rusher, but then you look at that speed and you're like, wow. I mean, the explosiveness. There was a guy the Eagles took a couple years ago out of La Tech, Milton Williams, who,
Absolutely.
you know, has
Milton
played
Williams.
he's
Oh my
played
gosh.
well. He's played well for the Eagles, but he's got a kind of the similar build, 6'2", 280, crazy athlete. And he's done well in the NFL.
Incredible, Rascal. He was, from the year he came out, I think it was 2 years ago, 2020 class for Milton Williams. He had one of the highest relative athletic scores of anybody in the class. But like you said, he was coming out of Louisiana Tech. So it was like, and he was kind of a late bloomer too. And, you know, a tweener, is he a 3-tech? But the productivity was absolutely off the charts despite playing at the G5 CUSA level. And it's great to see how it did, you know, progress to the Eagles, because, dude, those athletic freaks like that, you know, who, even if they're late bloomers, even if it's a guy like Adebare who, you know, started a little bit late, they translate.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a couple other guys now. They're further down the list, but the Niners do not pick until the third round. There's a couple other interior players that, man, I've just loved, but I kind of see them as, you know, they might be defensive ends or they might be interior rushers, but they're not like the two gappers. They're one gap penetrators. The two guys that I really love late in this draft, Dawan Johnson, who plays for Toledo, who 6'3", 275. Now, I think he plays inside, but in the wide 9, he might play outside. I mean, he's got such great movement ability. The other kid is the Notre Dame guy, Jason Adamilola. Everybody's talking about Foskey, and we'll get to Foskey in a second, but Adamilola's got a great motor. He's 6'3", about 285, but the movement ability on him is just really something. I really loved watching him. The motor, the hands, the technique, the versatility to play in different spots on the line. I don't know if you saw Dawan Johnson or Jason Adamilola from Notre Dame, but have you seen those guys? Do you have an opinion on either of those guys?
Yeah, both of them. Yeah, Adamilola, as discussed, you know, for Notre Dame, he's playing next to Foskey, and there is a lot. You know, obviously, he was a guy who set the Notre Dame record in sacks. So anytime you overtake Justin Tuck, you're going to get some, you know, some pub. So, but you know, with his running mate on the 3-tech side, like you said, at 285-ish, the 280, 285 range, you have to be a special type athlete. You have to have a trait that is going to, that you can look at and say, can this guy translate despite lack of prototypical size? Because look, that's fine, 280, 285 in college. You can live at 280 all day, but you have to be special to be 280 and be an every down 3-tech at the NFL level. They want you to be in the 290, 300 pound range. You know, it's just how it is. This is the day and age we're living in. And then they want you to be a freak too. So you have to be special at something. And like I said, with him, he does have that ability, that agility, the ability to knife, you know, in and attack the outside shoulder of blockers. He has that, you know. So does he have the power to stand up on the interior? That's what my question is, you know, with him. But, you know, on the other side with Dawan, the MAC has a couple of pretty good edge guys that I like, you know, in addition to him. Also, Jose Ramirez, who was a little bit on the shorter side.
Yes, I love Jose Ramirez.
Who's 6'2", you know, both of them. I saw both of them, especially Jose at the Shrine Bowl, because I was there all 5 days, all 5 practices. And look, there's those two guys specifically out of the MAC, you know, Eastern Michigan and Toledo, that really stood out. And with Ramirez, he's on the shorter side. He's an edge. And I said that 250, but he was really, really tough to keep in front of, you know, for the tackles. They couldn't mirror him. His speed, his hands were excellent despite lack of prototypical length. He kept his pads clean, did a great job of it. It was just a terror, just technique and everything. So you have a couple of finished guys coming out of lower levels, like you said. So it's not just the top end of this edge class where you say that top 15 to 20 is good, but I also see situational value in the 6th, 7th round from those guys, where I think you could see them make a roster in a way that you don't see a lot of MAC guys do. So I think both of them have make it grades for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Jose Ramirez, I saw him in a game earlier this year, And this is the same school that produced Max Crosby, who obviously has had a very good NFL career.
Gold standard. Yes.
Then I watched Ramirez in the East-West game, and there was one play where he flattened to the quarterback, where the angle that he took just showed crazy flexibility. And I haven't seen even the great. I mean, I'm watching Nick Bosa every week as I'm doing the Niners stuff. Nick Bosa is as good as it gets. This guy, the angle that he took to flatten from his right defensive end position to the quarterback in that game was just like, I had a buddy of mine who's a road scout in the Midwest, and he's like sending me, he's like, dude, look at this guy. Absolutely. Then Ramirez goes to the combine in Indy, and I think he had, if not the best, it was one of the best 3-cone drills. And we kind of saw, you see it on film, and then you see it in the workouts. And to me, when the workouts mesh with the film, you really got, and there's collegiate production there, you really got something. So Jose Ramirez, where do you anticipate him going? They list him at 6'2", 242 pounds. So he's not necessarily a fit in every scheme. I'd love the Niners to grab him. I think he's going to go somewhere outside the top 150. So I think he's like a 4th or 5th round guy, maybe even later.
I think that the size, like you're talking about, the lack of the prototype length, it is going to be a factor for him. But like you said, to put in perspective, Jose Ramirez's 3-cone, he ran a 6.95. Okay, he ran a sub 7-second 3-cone. Only 2 wide receivers in all of 2022 ran a sub 7-second 3-cone. Okay, that's amazing. That's last year. That's the entire class last year. This year, you had more of them. You had 10 of them do that, but still, like we're talking about wide receivers here. So
right,
that's the type of athleticism that he can bring to the table. Now, as you're talking, he is, and it's a lot of fit, talk here. You're going to need a situational 3rd down passing situation, rusher. That's what he's going to do. He's going to stand up. He's not going to be able to, he's going to get washed out if you use him too much in run support. That's not what he does, and that's okay. He can be every down at the MAC. He survived, but it's just not what he's going to do. But like you're saying, if that's what San Francisco is looking for, and that's their type, well, you said they might double up. Well, there's nothing wrong with maybe targeting one of these bigger, more dominant ends, that are more of an edge setting type in the early going. That second round, you're going to get somebody you're going to like, or the late first, that's fine too. As well as looking down round 6, 7 and say, all right, well, we got a guy here in Ramirez round 6 that we can bring in and say, I know that when it's time to pin his ears back, what does that guy do? That guy gets after it. Use him for what he's great at, and I think you're going to be in great shape.
Yeah. Robert Whitaker in the chat, Eric says, who's your defensive end sleeper in the draft? Heck, we may be discussing him right now. Jose Ramirez, and I don't know if he's a deep sleeper because I think he's probably a mid-round guy, but he's probably a day 3 guy for sure. So I would put Ramirez, but I like several guys on this list. Do you have somebody that, if I say day 3 sleeper D end, who comes to mind, in a 4-man front, let's say, not a 34 front, but a 43 front?
So I would say if we're going down the board, we're going 6, 7. Obviously, we talked about Ramirez, but he is not going to be on. We can't have him as a base DE. So I liked a guy. We'll go the Shrine Bowl again because that's why I went there, is because I wanted to have an opinion on these guys down the board, because that's kind of what's tough to evaluate. I can get all the tape I want, as you can. There's no shortage of Alabama and LSU and Georgia tape. Like, rest assured, Kruegs, we're going to be able to watch Nolan Smith at Georgia.
Right.
We're going to be able to see Will Anderson. We're going to be okay. But what I really like to see at Shrine Bowl, a guy that I liked was Tyrus Wheat from
Mississippi State.
He's
one of my guys as well. I've loved him for a couple. He's a little short, but man, the motor.
Again, that 6'2.5", maybe just touching 6'3", but he's a legit 260. So he'll fit in that at that base DE role. And he was just a lot to handle for the offensive lineman. He has that. He's good hand. His hands are very, in motion. I like his counters. He isn't the prototypical length, but in terms of like, a run stopper and being somebody who I think could hold up and still be able to give you some juice, in the pass rush situation, I like him, late. Brenton Cox for Florida. A guy who had some issues, with internally within the team and was dismissed after 6 weeks. But for that first 6 weeks of the season, Brenton Cox is proportioned in a way at that 6'4", is 270, is long. I saw him throw out a couple of mean long arms where he was just controlling 310-pound tackles. So I liked what I saw from him technique-wise. When you watch his tape, he was a dominant force for Florida in the SEC during that time that he was there. Had a great game against Utah in game one in a very competitive contest. They ended up winning. There was a huge win for Billy Napier, the head coach, in his first game there as the coach of the Gators. So, against high-end competition, we've seen him do well. Had a disciplinary issue. If he could straighten that out, I think he could be a guy where you look at my favorite edge rusher last year that I thought he was being graded in like the 4th, 5th round, that I thought it was absolutely, I couldn't believe it. Sam Williams for
Ole Miss.
I like his tape. I don't think there's like, his tape is just, it was shocking to me at how amazing and how perfect he looked. He looked to me on tape like Jalen Phillips from the year prior, where it's that package, just the linear lean, but cut up and have the V-taper body where it's just built, cast out of bronze type of a thing. Like that sort of a look where you just look at it and be like, this guy fits. And then the tape, I think that down the board, you could see that sort of an effect from him. If I'm going mid rounds, that isn't like too far. Those guys are further down the board, of course. I kind of liked Yaya Diaby from Louisville. Yeah, like ran a great 40. His testing was incredible, like raw. He's raw, but when I look at him and I see his ability, to run, to move, to where if he could develop maybe a couple more counters, him going at it, him just let him loose, turn him loose, let him do his thing. He's a real sack artist, and I think you work with him in a couple of years. He's out there playing on a consistent basis. So he's more of a mid-round sleeper that I like.
It's a good one though, because he's 6'4", he's in that 270 range. In a lot of ways, he's kind of the prototype. And
athletic guys Seattle like that with the length,
right?
Like
Seattle got a lot out of Boye Mafe last year. I thought Mafe was pretty raw, and yet by the end of the year, you could start to see he was coming on.
Mafe with him, my gosh, he was a perfect 10 relative athletic score for his whole package. Just the freakness of Boye Mafe is what really stands out about him. And you saw him at Minnesota, and again, very similar in that, man, you get him with a pass rush guru. You get him with somebody who is a master of his craft. One of those great NFL coaches that can mold him and take that time and just see the potential in him, that diamond, and polish him. That's what you saw happen. Especially, I think, like I did watch some Mafe earlier in the season. I thought towards the second end, as that stretch run, the playoff run for Seattle, where nobody expected, they going inside. We're going with Geno Smith. Everyone's saying, what? Boye Mafe really bolstered that edge and helped them get to the playoffs. So I love the way he played down the stretch, really making an impact. And you're right. What a great comp.
There's other guys that are deep. There's a guy named Brevin Allen who plays at Campbell, who I saw in one of the All-Star games, and I thought, wow, this guy's coming flying off the edge. He's a day 3 guy, 6'4", 260 pounds. Locally, I don't know how much San Jose State ball you watch, but Rhett Hall's son.
With Viami?
Well, I was actually talking about Cade Hall.
Cade Hall, okay.
Yeah, Villami as well. Villami Fahoko. Both those guys, Fahoko and Cade Hall. But Cade Hall's dad played for the Niners, Rhett Hall. And, Cade Hall doesn't have that quick twitch, but 6'3", 270, crazy motor, really tough guy. One of the leaders on the Spartan football team for sure. What do you think of the two Spartans?
First off, when you start San Jose State with the great Coach Brennan and what he's done to turn around that program, I don't think I need to tell anybody in the Bay Area about the come up of San Jose State during his, tenure. Look at the 2020 they put out. Look at how far that program has come, and look at now they're developing not just them, but like the entire defense for San Jose State over the past few years. Try looking at another program in college, because now you're in my world. Now I get to have a little bit of fun. We're talking about San Jose State. Try to find another program that defended the air raid system better. And I know that 2021, obviously Nick Starkel comes in, he gets hurt, and you have to run Nick Nash out there and basically just go, you have to run a modified option because you just can't run the air raid. They had to switch, sort of mid-season, and it was sort of a reset in 2021. In comes Siobhan Cordero and company, and you bring in Elijah Cooks. Justin Lockhart will be there this year. I'm so excited to see what Justin Lockhart and Cordero can do with Lockhart as the number one guy. But you're defending a offense that is very good. Like, this is a solid offense they're trotting out, and it's pretty fast paced. So it's hard when you're defending all these snaps. You're not getting much rest on the sideline to have to go out and do that. And both Hall and Fahoko, excellent. I got to talk to Villami actually at the Shrine Bowl, like as part of my interviews. I guess I sat down with him for 10 minutes. And had a chat. And that's something that he talked about, was how proud he was of the defense that the Spartans were pitching while he was there, and actually lining up next to Hall. He talked about how they're both coming in and how, he thinks that what they put on tape and how they performed, as a SJSU down lineman really bolsters their case. And, while, watching what they were doing, I was super, super impressed with Villami. Like, I, was a guy that I purposely, even though we saw him get hurt, and it was, I wish we had some more of this season, and that he could have gone out and played at the Shrine Bowl, gone out and tested at the Combine, which he wasn't able to do. But I was really looking forward, because he's, at 285. He was 3-tech, went outside sometimes, is he an edge? He's a 3-tech. Sort of thing. But both of them, the physicality, the way that they, I think, especially stop the run, like you said, that sure, maybe Hall doesn't have the get off that you expect in the elite first step that you're looking for in an NFL edge rusher, and very few do, but with where he could possibly carve out a niche is as a base and being able to set an edge and really come in on short yardage work and handle those sort of duties.
Yeah, I mean, Fahoko's really interesting. I mean, he's got the rugby background. He's a second cousin of Vita Vea from the Buccaneers, who's a former number one pick. Played for, I played for Ray Calcagno at St. Ignatius. His brother, Ron Calcagno, coached at St. Francis forever. I think Ron's son, Greg, is the guy who coaches now at St. Francis. Fahoko played for him. And then, he was the defensive player of the year this year in the Mountain West Conference. He was a preseason All-American. He was the East-West Shrine defensive player of the week at the All-Star game. Viliami Fahoko, check him out, and Cade Hall. Both those guys for the Spartans were really good. It's funny. If you talk to scouts, they'll tell you, man, they got a different level of respect for the LSU prospects. LSU just consistently produces really, really good NFL players. You got to take a double look at all their guys because they're that good. You already mentioned Ojolari, BJ Ojolari, who had 6'2", 250, 245, tremendous edge rusher. But I'll tell you, even the guy that I like down there, not more necessarily, but I definitely think he's a physical prototype, is Ali Gay, 6'6", 265. I mean, this guy passes the eyeball test as soon as he walks into the room. He's absolutely exactly what you think an NFL edge rusher should look like. He did go to the Senior Bowl. He was a team captain at LSU. He's already graduated. This is a JUCO player, Garden City Community College in Kansas, and then to LSU. What do you think of Ali Gay? I know you talked about Ojulari, but Gay, I thought last year could have come out, decided to go back. What do you think of Gay in his potential as a pro?
Yeah, Frank, it probably would have helped him to come out last year.
Yeah.
Because we talked about, there was this is an incredible edge class. And not just is this a class in general, devastating, like an excellent class, but his own team. Keep in mind, obviously, we talked about B.J. Ojulari, who, in my estimation, is the most polished pass rusher in the entire class in terms of his full move set and how he can keep opposing blockers off balance by what he puts out on an every down basis. Just his plan shows just how evolved and how they produce defensive players and edge rushers at LSU. The problem with Gay was Harold Perkins came in this year as a true freshman and absolutely took the SEC by storm. And you will hear when he is here in 2025 and we're doing this draft, Harold Perkins is going to be a top 10 pick. So you have B.J. Ojulari, who is just, an absolute Picasso when it comes to, his approach and how he rushes with a plan and has a vision. And then you have Harold Perkins, who comes in and he is a true freshman and has an impact like very, very few players do. So Gay kind of got almost overshadowed a little bit because of that. But like you said, the physical package, those type of guys where he has all the length, all the intangibles, all the things that you're looking for in terms of how the prototype edge is developed, the arm length, the twitch, the ability to bend, does he have the hips? He shows that ability to do that. I still don't think he climbs into day 2 territory because of the lack of, the real complete season this season. He was in the shadows. It doesn't look good when he's, the number 3 DE on his own team. And I just feel like with a class this strong, it naturally is just going to push a guy like that down the board through no real fault of his own, but through just the fact that, top to bottom, you have a lot of guys that have produced in a way that I think, leaves Gay a little bit behind.
It's funny. The state of Georgia has got to be one of the most incredible states for high school football because Georgia Tech, Georgia, several SEC schools, if you look at their top players, they're almost always from Georgia. One guy that I love in this draft, he's from Stone Mountain, Georgia. He went to Valdosta State. He transferred into the MAC and played for the Chippewas at Central Michigan. Thomas Incoom, 6'4", 265 pounds, was at the Senior Bowl, was invited to play in the Shrine Bowl, went to the Combine, played 2 years at Central Michigan after he transferred. And I just there's some stiffness in this game, but man, the motor, the size, the speed, the presence off the edge. I think Incoom is a nice day 3 guy as well. I don't know exactly where he's going to go, but I think he's probably going to be like 6th round, and that's a great 6th round pick. I mean, that guy absolutely is going to be a player in the NFL. Give me your thoughts on Incoom from Central Michigan. The MAC is really, it used to be the MAC, they're very select few players. Now, I would say the MAC probably has as many pro prospects as the Pac-12, maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, again, the MAC out here cranking out some very relevant prospects. It isn't like everybody gets invited to the Senior Bowl. It's important for people to understand that there's a whole chain of bowls that lead up to the Senior Bowl. You have the Hula, and you have the NFLPA, and you have the Shrine, and then you have the Senior Bowl. So it sort of cascades upwards in terms of the perceived prominence. So the fact that a MAC player is getting invited to the Senior Bowl over a lot of very, worthy Power 5 guys. Like another guy I think that is an incredible DE that, really has sleeper potential, Habakkuk Baldonado from Pitt.
Yeah.
He went to the Shrine Bowl, and he was incredible. He didn't get a bump to the Senior Bowl. Incoon did. And the reason why is, again, what you'll see with those MAC pass rushers, it's similar. It's very similar to Ramirez. He's 6'2", so he doesn't have the long, strides and be able to do like the hop step and stuff like that. He has to rely on the shorter, areas, sort of quickness. But he's 260. He's a base guy, just sort of similar to Wheat. And there's a lot of those guys that have in this class that are just really dynamic for their level. And Incoon was a cut above the average. Much better than what you expect to be seeing at the MAC level. And but when you look at him, I just feel like the 30-inch vert. You want to see a little more of that lower body drive and power. I feel like up top, he's well developed, thick. He can handle himself. But the leg drive is something you want to see, of course. And it's probably going to mean that he will be a 3-4 at the next level. Maybe want to slim down a little bit to improve quickness. Since he was in the 4.7s, I want to say with his 40, but he does have a nice first step. He does in terms of his motor, it's there. He's got a plan that he rushes with, that's very similar to Ramirez, cerebral guys. But there are some physical limitations I think probably mean, like you're saying, 5th, 6th, 7th round, but he will be taken.
You mentioned Habakkuk Baldonado. He's a great prospect too. 6'5", 260 pounds. This kid is really interesting. He's from Italy. He's from Rome, and he came over. And this guy's he's already got his bachelor's degree in economics. He's now enrolled at the Pitts University of Pittsburgh's Katz Graduate School of Business. This is a smart kid who could probably do a lot of different things. And he's got kind of the perfect frame for an NFL edge rusher. There needs to be some coaching, but man, Baldonado kind of caught my eye a couple times. When you read his story, you can see that there's probably some upside potential. I don't think he's realized all of his potential yet. And he's in, kind of a prototypical frame for the position. What did Baldonado look like on film to you? What did he look like at the All-Star games?
Yeah, at the East-West, the Shrine Bowl, when I got to see him there, it was, similarly, he's just giving the opposing tackles hell. And I would say, pound for of all the edge rushers there, I think he was probably the best. The other guys, I like Wheat, I liked Cox, but the overall camp, I felt like it was Baldonado. And he didn't test the way I was hoping at the combine. 4.78 isn't what you want to see from a 252-pound, edge rusher. But the thing is with him is he, as stated, he grew up in Italy. So he's one of those guys with great feet and just agility and just the way he moves and sets himself up. His footwork is very good. He doesn't take too many steps to corner. It's a quick, as many steps as it takes, that's how many he's taking. But he doesn't dither with what he's doing. He's getting straight to the point. But growing up in Italy, you didn't have that base. Played football for 3 years in Italy before coming over and moving to Florida and facing high level competition. So he does have to develop. He is obviously raw in that sense. But all ACC, 11.5 TFLs last year, and a cerebral guy who has already grown by leaps and bounds. I think he can do more. I think there's more growth potential there. And while I don't know if he'll be an every down guy, I do think that he could end up making a roster and cashing plenty of NFL paychecks.
Okay, so we've hit a bunch of different guys for sure. I kind of started with the top guys: Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy, Nolan Smith. I think are all going round one. And we've hit on some of the guys like Jose Ramirez and Baldonado and Diaby, and you mentioned Brenton Cox, Fahoko, guys who are probably going to be there in the middle rounds, let's say end of day 2, beginning of day 3. But the Niners have 3 picks all right there. I think it's like 99, 101, 102. So if we go into the chat here, we got a question from Gregis Khan. Not Genghis Khan, Gregis Khan. Says, who's the best speed to power guy that will be available at the bottom of round 3? That's a very Niners specific question. So let's kind of hammer down on this group in between. And to me, this is the, when I say in between, they're not going in round 1 probably, but they're not going to be there necessarily at the end of round 3. So maybe you use your 3rd round picks to parlay them into a higher pick for maybe a defensive end of your choice. And the group that I think is going to be there anywhere from the late 1st to the top of the 3rd is Will McDonald from Iowa State, Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame, Zach Harrison from Ohio State, Derek Hall from Auburn, the K-State kid Felix Anadike Uzuma, Byron Young from Tennessee, Andre Carter II from Army. Those are the guys I think in that group that could, maybe you could trade up for one of these guys. Of that group, that kind of second tier defensive end group, and there's some good ones in there. I like almost all these guys. Do you have a favorite? You got a favorite out of that group? Who's the best speed to power guy that's going to be there late?
If we want speed to power, if that's what we're looking for, I like Byron Young.
Who had a great workout in Indy.
Yes, absolutely. Great workout in Indy. And you go and you watch his film, and he is lightning fast. When he's coming, like his first step is, he ran a 4.4340, and even though that's straight line speed and that doesn't always translate, he's 250 pounds doing that. He's not 235, 240. Like he's 250. He is out there, and he can convert that. And that's really what we're looking for, at that level. And the power, 38-inch vert, 11 broad. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. All of it, you see it. And it's, some of the workout guys, they don't do it on tape. Man, Byron Young does it on tape. And again, when he wants to, he's so fast, you have to overset at times. It's just going to happen as a tackle. And then when he goes and, he'll give you a little shoulder flash to the outside, and then, turn right in and come right in on the chest and the pads. And when he does that, he's moving to 320-pound tackles when he is converting that. And you saw him do it at the Senior Bowl too. You see it at Tennessee where he's going up, he watches Alabama tape. Watch what he's doing. He's doing it against the best competition. And I think you get him down there, he falls in the 3rd round because there's so many guys. End of the second, top of the 3rd. If you really want to go there and go down and get him, I think like if that's what you want, if you want speed to power and you want to prioritize that, I would say if you could get Byron Young in the early 3rd, if he's there hanging around there, maybe and it doesn't, it wouldn't take too much to get up, but if you could get up there and get him, I think that would be perfect.
By the way, if you're a Niner fan and you look up Byron Young in the draft and you're like, this guy is your edge rusher, there's 2 Byron Youngs. There's Byron Young from Bama, and then there's Byron Young from Tennessee. The guy from Bama is more of an interior player. Young from Tennessee is the edge player. Okay, let's get a couple guys that I really am intrigued by. Is Will McDonald too small to play defensive end in the NFL? It's a Milwaukee, Wisconsin kid. He wore number 9 for the Cyclones. He's got ridiculous agility, spin moves. He might be as good an athlete as there is at defensive end, but he is 235, 240, in that range. He's pretty, I don't know if he's got the frame to put on too much more weight. But man, if you watch this guy in some of the spin moves and some of the agility that he shows, he looks freakish, but then I also see him, if he doesn't win to the edge, does he have any counter moves? Is he going to be able to, is he just going to be stonewalled by these 330-pound tackles if they get their hands on him? Where are you with Will McDonald, the 4th?
Sure. Yeah. The 4th. Right. As stated, at the combine, I will say, you're there and you're sizing up all these guys, and you're just, a lot of it is you want to see them, get a look, size them up. They're on podiums, they're next to each other, and it's a lineup. So I will say, as soon as I saw Will McDonald up there at his podium after seeing, a couple of edge groups come through, first thing I thought was, oh my God, look how slight his shoulders are.
Right.
Like
Right.
slight. It's right out of the gate. This guy's an edge, but
he might be a stack backer, maybe.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I understand why, because he is long. Like he does look, long, and it could be perception with his, just his dimensions, but man, he's very active when on the run. His shoulders, the JJ Watt, the shoulder shake, a lot of shoulder shakes. He's always trying to disrupt timing, and tempo. He's really fast on the get off. What was weird is Iowa State, which had an exceptional defense this year, they played him at base DE in a 3-4 alignment a lot. He's playing with his hand down a lot at Iowa State, which is just like, wow. Okay. I mean, if you want to do that, he had to take on a lot of blocks. And look, if he doesn't get proper hand position out of the gate, he's getting washed out. But what works for him is he has 35-inch arms, despite his, relatively slight frame. He's got long arms, and the prototype length for a edge rusher in that respect. Does a good job knifing through tackles. He can hold up pretty well when engaged at the collegiate level, but he is a 3-4 outside linebacker. He is a wide 9 in the NFL. You are not going to get him to be on the interior. Do not put his hand down. He's going to get washed right out. He will not be setting any edges. That being said, as you say, I mean, the guy is dazzling to watch work. Like, see, his highlights. I mean, on a down-to-down basis, look, you got to watch the full games of him. Don't get seduced by the highlight tape, because you will be impressed. It's impressive what he's done, but you got to make sure you see it all. But he's not going to overpower linemen at all. He outmaneuvers them. He out-techniques them. He outspeeds them. He out-savvies them. And that tends to catch up with you a little bit, at the NFL level, if there isn't an element of power to your game that I think could be a problem for him. That being said, 48% win rate in true pass rush situations, second best in the country. 24 and a half years old, too. So
a little on the old side.
A lot of things here. I've seen him, as a lockdown first. I've seen him in the first in a lot of mocks. I don't think I would feel comfortable given, the body projection is what it comes to. I don't know if that frame does add weight. And for that, he is a very firm day 2 guy for me. I would say end of round 2 is right where I'd kind of peg him.
You always got to be careful if you're looking at a highlight reel, because a guy's highlight reel could be spectacular, but that may not represent necessarily how he plays. Iowa State had that gigantic wide receiver a few years ago, and I forget his name, but he was basically, the Eagles tried him as a tight end a couple years later because he just Hakeem something.
Hakeem Butler.
Hakeem Butler. And his highlight reel, Eric, was awesome. Like, if you watch his highlight reel, you're like, oh my God, Hakeem Butler is going to be incredible. And it wasn't like he didn't make those plays. He did make those plays.
He did.
But his ball skills were just totally pedestrian. And he made some spectacular catches, but he would drop a ton of easy ones. I think he went in like the 3rd or 4th round and he washed out of the league. I mean, he didn't gain any separation. He was a big receiver. Teams are trying him as a movement tight end, but it just didn't happen for him. So sometimes
be careful.
Highlight reels can be deceiving,
especially with contested catch guys. Like, oh, that's great. He's making a whole bunch of great contested catches on tape. Well, a lot of times, if you're not separating at that level, you're not going to separate at the NFL. And those contested situations are just, you're blanketed and it's not even a contest. You're done. So that's
what Shanahan always says, that one of the things he looks for in wide receivers, he was a wide receiver at Texas. He looks for separation, because if you can get the separation in college, first of all, if you can't in college, you won't in the NFL.
Ain't happening.
You know what I mean? It's as simple as
yes.
that. The guy that I could totally see the Niners trading up for, because they love Notre Dame guys, The owner went to Notre Dame, is Isaiah Foskey. Now, Isaiah Foskey's interesting. He's from Antioch, which is right here in the Bay Area. He went to De La Salle, which is, I could literally pick up a stone and throw it out my window and hit De La Salle. It's so close. The guy, I saw him in the Cal game. He had 1.5 sacks. At that point, I think he tied Bryant Young for 9th on the all-time Notre Dame list. I mean, anytime you're tying BY on any list, that you should take notice of that. But 6'5", 265, great motor. Where are you with Isaiah Foskey? Is he a late first? How do you evaluate Foskey? Do you think he would be a fit for the Niners wide 9? Where do you see him going?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously extremely productive, in college, and is one of the great, in terms of, as discussed, broke Justin Tuck's sack record. It's about as good as it gets. Put over there in Antioch with Najee Harris, another Antioch product from up there. And like you said, the dimensions are there. It's his speed, the speed to power transition. He's great in that respect too. Where he really is great. That I look at him, his hands are really good. He wins with his hand placement is right on the money. Very active, knows how to keep himself, to win those wars up top, where it's really important to do so. And then still has, the athleticism to be able to challenge with speed in addition to with savvy, So I like when he tosses it. His long arm is pretty aggressive. He gets right up in the kitchen of opposing tackles. So I do like that. And sure, I mean, I think it's entirely possible. I see him as, he would be sliding into the late first for me. I just think there's so many guys that I have him as a second round grade personally, because there are limitations, when it comes to disruption and where I think he can ultimately max out, at the NFL level. But man, he's a guy who is productive at the highest levels and has done well against really good offensive tackles, even if he doesn't have bend, like he can get around, he has the speed, but he doesn't have, maybe the tight hips a little bit. He does a lot of other things as a face-up rusher that certainly I think will project and land him solidly in the second round, maybe sneak in the first.
Eric, great stuff, man. We'll let you go. I know you got to jump, but appreciate your time. And where did you have Drake Jackson last year, by the way? Because Drake, obviously, Niners got him in round 2. I thought he had a really nice rookie year. Yeah,
well, Drake Jackson, it was never, an issue with his talent because he was a true 5-star, D-end coming out of high school and was pretty much physically formed at that 265 where he was living, 260 or so, right out of the gate at 18 years old. So it was almost a case with him where he was a little, like, almost too formed when he went in, just too freaky. And he had to kind of learn to be like, all right, I have to be a little more technical here. I can't just win with my just freakishness all the time. Let me get some counters. Let me try to get off of these blocks and do that sort of thing. So I felt like when, he really learned to do that year 2 and year 3, even though he played a ton as a freshman at USC, you saw it coming with him and you saw it developing. And it's great to see how productive he was. Great to see him go in the second round, where he deserved to go and to be productive for the 49ers. Absolutely. Even though, he grew up in LA, I'm sure he had some misgivings about going up to the Bay Area, but it seems like it's working out well for everybody involved.
Yeah, his dad was a Raider fan, but man,
right, exactly.
Drake's been a great Niner. Didn't finish the year strong, but I think he's going to have a big second year. Hey, we'll let you go. In a couple of weeks, we'd love to have you back and talk offensive tackles. I think the one thing we know for sure is the Niners look like they're going for a right tackle in this upcoming draft, and we'd love to get you back in a couple of weeks and talk tackles before the draft.
Sure, and there are some super heavyweights in this class, let me tell you. So you'll have a few to choose from. I can't wait to talk about DeJuan Jones and how gigantic he is.
No, seriously, he is a freaking. It's like House Ballard. Eric Froton, he's a great follow on Twitter at CF Froton at CF FROTON. Check him out. I found you on Roto World. Your articles appear on the draft on NBC.
NBC
Where can people
Sports,
go and find your stuff,
Edge.
Eric?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. NBC Sports, Edge, Roto World. It's whatever the branding you want to call it. And you can find my columns. I already have all my skill positions are done, signed, sealed, delivered, quarterback through tight end. Go pretty deep, down to 40 or so, 50 players on that front, with some analysis of a lot of the important top guys to give you a little bit of color of who these players are and how they relate to your team.
Great stuff, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Larry.
The great Eric Froton stopping by from NBC. He's outstanding. And we could have bent his ear for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we don't want to take too much of his time. Let him get on with the rest of his day. But we're going to hit a couple more here in the chat, because I starred a number of these questions as we were going through it. First, let's go to the super chat from Elias Soto, who throws in a couple bucks. He says, possible, likely to trade up to get a starter at right tackle. I don't think there's any doubt that the 49ers are going to be looking at, right tackles in free agency, even guys that are just, fill in the gaps guys. I mentioned Tom Compton, I believe, is still out there. I'm looking at the tackle draft, and I think it's going to go Paris Johnson, Pete Skoronski. I think Skoronski probably goes first, but those are the two top guys. Broderick Jones is an incredible athlete out of Georgia. He's going to go in round one. A lot of people think Anton Harrison, after the workouts that he's shown, that he's probably going to go late round one. And there may be even a team that reaches for Darnell Wright from Tennessee, who's 6'5", 333 pounds, really moved well, had a great year for Tennessee, blocking for Hendon Hooker. So you may see 5 offensive tackles going round one. So it's that next group that I think the 49ers might be shopping from, and they may have to trade up. Now, this group includes Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse, Dawan Jones from Ohio State, who is a freakish size, but actually moves really well. 6'8", 375 pounds. So he is absolutely a house, but he moves well. And I think he could be a plug and play right tackle. I mean, you could maybe draft Dawan Jones on day 2, and he could start for you week 1. I really believe that. I think he needs work, and he needs work on his quickness, and always edge rusher speed is going to bother him a little bit, but the technique's not horrendous. Usually you see a guy that big, you're like, his technique's probably terrible. His technique's not great, but it's not. I mean, he could play. Blake Freeland is on this list out of BYU, 6'8", about 300 pounds, has the frame to put on about 25 pounds. He could be 6'8", 330 in 3 years. He might be there at the end of round 2 in that range. I really like Jalen Duncan from Maryland, 6'6", about 310 pounds, really good athlete. I think he could be a plug and play starter at right tackle. Tyler Steen from Alabama, 6'6", 321 pounds. Really interesting player who, obviously played at a really high level. And you look at that at 320, he doesn't have a lot of fat on him. I mean, he could definitely put on a lot of weight and be useful there. And then there's guys that are going to be for sure on the board that I really like. Brad Graham, who we're big fans of, is a big fan of this guy. He kind of turned me on to him. Nick Saldiveri from Old Dominion, 6'6", about 320. Better feet than you would think, but I like him. I like Palszewski from Illinois, who's 6'6", 315 pounds. He's a really good pass blocker. Did a nice job blocking for Tommy DeVito and opening run lanes for that running back Brown they have at Illinois. I think Palszewski is a steal. I really do, especially in the mid rounds. Dalton Wagner from Arkansas is going to be an interesting player at the next level. The Oregon guy, Malasela Vulumle Lalulu or whatever, 6'5", 320. He's an interesting player to watch. There's a number of guys. To me, I always emphasize the toughness factor. You need great feet to play tackle in the NFL. But whether you're playing tackle, guard, or center, it's a straight inline hand fight, and you better be tough. So to me, I've seen guys who are athletic wash out. I've seen guys who are really, really tough, make it when they really had no business making it. So I actually think arm length at tackle is very important, but because it's all about the angle. If you have short arms, guys can take a closer angle. They're into your body. You need that long arm, those long arms at tackle. You really, really have to have quick feet. That's why you see some guys transition from, tight end to being an offensive tackle, because you got to have the quick feet. And so they'd rather take a 270-pound offensive tackle, put him on the practice squad if he's tough, has long arms and great feet, put, in a year, put 15 pounds of weight, maybe 20 pounds of weight, and now he's 290 and he's playing tackle. So it's interesting. If you go back and look at the NFL 25 years ago, you had these monster bodies at tackle. I think House Ballard played tackle for Buffalo. Those guys are pretty much guards now. If you can't, you got to have real movement ability, or you're inside at guard. So you can be 375, but you're probably going to play right guard. It's rare that a guy who's 375 also has the quickness to be able to deal with the speed coming off the edge in the NFL these days. A couple others that were starred here that I want to get to. Angel Negri says, Krug, good morning. What do you think about Austin Bryant coming to the Niners? That is the rumor. Austin Bryant, who played was born in Georgia, played his college ball at Clemson, was a 4th-round pick of the Lions in the 2019 draft, after winning a couple national championships in college. The Niners are looking at Austin Bryant. So he's a free agent. Interesting player for sure. 6'5", 250, good motor, good get off, much better get off now than what he had when he came into the league. I don't know what kind of money he's going to command in free agency. Probably not top tier dollars, but they need guys. And I would say they need at least one free agent defensive end. I mean, there's a bunch out there. Ngakwe's out there. Frank Clark's out there. Leonard Floyd's out there. They're all going to command much bigger dollars than Austin Bryant. But Bryant's interesting. He's definitely fits that Niner mold in that they like guys. They like guys who have height, and they like guys who are, 255 to 270 in that range coming off the edge. They don't seem like they go for the smaller bodied edge rushers. So I think that's an interesting one. He definitely is a guy that depending on the price tag, I love it. The one thing that they got to do is they've got to find some more depth there. Right now, you look at what the Niners have on the defensive line. They have Bosa, they have Drake Jackson, they have Cleveland Farrell, and then it's Alex Barrett, who was on the practice squad all year. I mean, that's a major drop off. They need to have at least one more free agent at defensive end, and then they probably need to take a couple of these guys in the draft. Now, Eric needed to jump, so we didn't get to all the guys, but a couple guys that are really intriguing. You say, who's going to be on the board when the Niners pick in the end of the 3rd round? Will Anderson's gone. Tyree Wilson's gone. Miles Murphy's gone. Nolan Smith's gone. I think Will McDonald, just on his highlight reel, probably going to go in the middle of the 2nd round. So those guys are gone. Foskey, I think, is gone. He's probably going middle of the 2nd round. The 2 guys so I think the top 6 are going to be off the board for sure in the 1st round and a half. Then after that, it's a little kind of beauty in the eye of the beholder. Zach Harrison's really interesting from Ohio State. If you watched the Buckeyes, this guy was a 5-star out of high school. And, if you look at his year this year, he had, for his career, he's got 19 and a half tackles for loss and 10 and a half sacks. He had a couple strip sacks last year that resulted in touchdowns. He had one against Penn State. He had one against Minnesota. He had an interception against Penn State this year. He's a scholar athlete. He majors in psychology. But, I mean, you're talking about a five-star guy. This guy, and coming out of high school, at 270 pounds, they clocked him at 4.47 in the 40. That is flying. 4.47 at 270. Now, I don't think he runs that fast anymore, but still, they also had him clocked at 10.7 for the 100 meters, which is flying, and 21.5 for the 200 meters, which is flying. He was the nation's number one defensive end coming out of high school. Now, I don't put a lot of credence in high school recruiting 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. Why? Because look at the projections. Go look at every guy that's projected to go in the first round of the draft. They're all 3-star guys. So where are all the 4 and 5-star guys who, should have been rated higher than these guys? The reality is that a lot of that high school ranking is a lot of it's just guesswork. And it's about who went to the camps and whose name is on the board with the kind of the services, rivals, and all these different services for recruiting. And I just think that if you're one of these guys from the deep weeds somewhere in Louisiana, Georgia, Mississippi, they're not going to find you, and you could be the best player. It's these guys who wind up, really going to these camps. So I just think don't look at the 3-star, 4-star, 5-star thing and just say, every 5-star is better than every 3-star. No, it's not the way it is. More times than not, the 5-star guys are just have done better PR for themselves or live in more urban areas or suburban areas. They're not in rural settings. Anyway, that all being said, Zach Harrison from Ohio State was a 5-star, and he's 6'5", and he's 274 pounds, and he runs about 4.5. So, yeah, if he's on the board at the end of the third, man, it would be really, really hard to look Nick Bosa in the eye and say, yeah, we passed on your Buckeye, former Buckeye buddy, Zach Harrison, because he's just screams blue chipper. I mean, it just absolutely screams blue chipper. Now, another guy that I think they're going to be looking right at. Now, he could go second round, but I think he's probably going to fall into the third round. They might have to trade up higher into the third round to get him, is Derek Hall. If you're really wanting that D Ford, player who's, absolutely rolling at full speed and 2 steps and can, beat offensive tackles out of their stance. I mean, Derek Hall's the kind of athlete for Auburn that, some offensive tackles just won't get their hands on him. I mean, he's that quick out of his stance, and he's got the ability. He's a little tight, but he's got the ability to dip that shoulder and still maintain his feet. They list him at 6'3", 254 pounds. Derek Hall, if you watched him at Auburn, a lot of these Auburn guys, Carl Lawson, I'm trying to think of some of the other guys they've had. A lot of them are built the same, which is like kind of short, 6'2", 6'3", not 6'5", 6'6", really well put together, tons of speed, tons of power. That's what Derek Hall has. Derek Hall has got a real compact build, but man, he'll dip that shoulder. His get off is crazy. He comes flying off the edge. He reminds me a ton of D Ford. So Derek Hall, I think, is an interesting guy. So, I mean, Isaiah Foskey, Zach Harrison, Derek Hall, the K-State kid, Felix Anadike Zuma is interesting. He's a little on the small side. BJ Ojolari, who Eric likes, also a little on the small side. Byron Young. These guys are all around 250. One guy who they projected to go in the first round who didn't work out well at the combine is Andre Carter II from Army. He's a redshirt junior, 6'6", 250. If you watch this guy play, I mean, he's just absolutely looks like exactly what you want. He's from Texas. He went to the Cheshire Academy, 6'6", 260. He started at Coastal at linebacker against Coastal Carolina. for Army. But I mean, he's a really solid player. But then when you look at his workout numbers, they weren't great. His vertical showed, not a lot of lower body explosion. He was kind of disappointing, to be honest. So he falls from a guy who a lot of people had in the late first round to probably round 2 or round 3. So, but yeah, I think that's the group they're looking at right there. Foskey, Harrison, Hall, Ojulari, Byron Young, Andre Carter, Jose Ramirez, Baldonado, Diaby, maybe Isaiah McGuire. I think those are the guys. Brenton Cox, Tavius Robinson, who they did meet with at Ole Miss. Really impressive athlete, 6'6", about 260. Those are the guys that are going to be sitting there in that mid to late third round range. And I think that's probably, who they'll be looking at. A couple other ones that I start here. Robert Whitaker, what type of style of defensive ends do the Niners prefer? They appear to prefer guys about 270 pounds, in that 265, 270, 6'4", 6'5", collegiate production, but good workout numbers. I'd be shocked if they went for a Will McDonald, who's incredible mover, but he might be a stacked backer. He might be, he's 245 pounds. And he kind of looks like, as you heard Eric say, he's got kind of narrow shoulders. He looks kind of maxed out at 240, 250 in that range. So I think McDonald might be a little bit on the light side. Robert Whitaker, Byron Young is a freakish athlete, but a little small. He is, but he had an incredible workout in Indy. El Camilo Dorado, I think Drake Jackson is going to break out. I do too. I think Drake is going to have a huge second year. I think he could be really, really good. So look for Drake to bust out. We got a couple others that I want to throw out here. How about them Niners? I would love a trade up for the North Dakota State right tackle, Cody Mauch. We talked about that the other day. Yeah, I mean, Cody Mauch is another guy. I think he might be a late first round pick, but there's a chance he's there in the second, maybe mid-second. There's no chance he's going to wind up falling all the way to the end of the third round. No chance. I just think he had too good of a week at the Senior Bowl there in Mobile. He's gotten too much pub. He's too versatile. He can play tackle. He can play guard. He can play center. He's kind of a tough guy. I think those scouts fell in love with him. Even if he has some limitations or some red flags, I still think he's at the lowest. He's a high third round pick. So they didn't have to trade up for him. And then Elias Soto made that super chat. He said, "Who trade up for a right tackle?" It's hard to say. It's really hard to say like which tackle they would like, but there's some interesting ones for sure. I think it's maybe Jalen Duncan, Blake Freeland, Dawan Jones. That's the group that I'd be looking at. Saldiveri and Palszewski are a little bit later. There's one guy that I really like who they listed as a guard. And I think when I watched him, I thought, man, this guy could definitely play tackle. And that's McClendon Curtis for Tennessee Chattanooga. 6'6", 325 pounds, really long arms, good feet. And he's got some bad weight. So I think if you get him in camp and you have him drop a few pounds, I think he's interesting. I also like Saidi Sow from Eastern Michigan. Now, he's probably a right guard, but I thought there was some movement ability there as well. He's 6'5", 325 pounds. I think he's a guy who could probably play in a couple different spots. Pretty versatile player all the way through. And then this one from Robert Whitaker about the edge rusher, Isaiah Land. Isaiah Land was an incredibly productive edge rusher. And I think it's Florida A&M, something like that. Let me see if he's on my list here. I don't think he made their list. But he is really undersized. When I'm talking about guys are undersized at 250, Isaiah Land is more like 235. 230. I mean, he's really angular. But, it's interesting. He's a football player because I saw him in the Senior Bowl, and they played him as a stacked backer. And usually stacked backers who are transitioning, an edge rusher who gets to, transition to be a stacked linebacker, a lot of times doesn't read and react the run plays between the tackles and doesn't attack the hole quite the same way you would see an inside backer do it. But Isaiah Land had an unbelievable stop on the goal line in the Senior Bowl in the first half where he just, he shot the gap. The guard was there, kind of played off the guard, stuck the running back in his tracks, and he looked really natural. He seems a little tall to be a stacked backer, but the one thing about the NFL now is that if you have a knack to go get quarterbacks, you know what? There's room for you. You can. A lot of teams use their linebackers on delayed blitzes, and if you can get to the quarterback, man, and you can bother the quarterback, even if you're, a kind of a too small or don't fit their exact, prerequisites, they make a room for you. So I'd be interested in Isaiah Land. He's probably not going to get drafted. He was incredibly productive in college. So I think there's a very good chance that he's a productive pro football player, but he's probably a late day 3 pick, 7th round, maybe undrafted. It may take a year on the practice squad. You know what I mean? Like you draft him, he's got good height. Maybe, you draft him at 235. Maybe you can bulk him up to 255 within a year, and you really have something as an edge rusher, a situational edge rusher. But at 235, I saw the way offensive linemen kind of bounced him around. You got to be able to anchor a little bit more against the run. Interestingly, when I asked Eric Froton his sleeper at the defensive end spot, he went with Tyrus Wheat, who I really liked Tyrus Wheat last year. I thought he was going to be in last year's draft out of Mississippi State. The one thing you can say about Mississippi State, whether it be Montez Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Chris Jones, they wind up with some big time ballers on their D line, and there's some great athletes. And Tyrus Wheat, yeah, would you like him to be 6'5"? Sure, but he's 6'2". To me, he reminds me a little bit of Hugh Douglas. When I saw Hugh Douglas in the Hula Bowl coming out of wherever he was, like Central State or wherever Hugh Douglas went, he looked great in that Senior Bowl. Tyrus Wheat reminds me a lot of Hugh Douglas. He's 6 feet, 265, or 6'2", 265, really thick, really strong, great ability to get the edge, much better hand usage than you would think. Played against top competition in the SEC. I think Tyrus Wheat would be a phenomenal day 3 steal for the 49ers. All right, a couple thoughts after we got a couple more that we starred here. Robert Jorgensen. Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, is really good. Yeah, he is. The interesting thing about Mayer is he did not work out well. So a lot of people thought he was going top 10. Now, because he didn't work out well, he didn't show great speed. Think about it. George Kittle ran 4.51. I think Michael Mayer ran 4.71. So that's quite a bit slower than Kittle. So, Kittle went in the 5th round out of Iowa, despite having good measurables, solid film, and 4.5 speed. In a really, really deep tight end class, Michael Mayer is still going to wind up going in the 1st round, but I don't think it's going to be top 20. I'm thinking it's going to be at the back of the 1st round. So, that's a guy right there who I'm a huge Michael Mayer fan. I don't care what his numbers say. I watched him a ton. He is a phenomenal player. Think of Gronk and Kittle and Kelsey. He's in that group. He's got great hands. He's a playmaker, great explosiveness, plays faster. Fork-tailed Devil says he runs like molasses. Yeah, I mean 4.7. But you know what? I'll say this: I'd roll a scout into South Bend and work him out again. I mean, I if I were the Niners, I would go get a private workout with Michael Mayer and figure out if you can get a better time. Figure out if he's legitimately a 4.7 guy. I don't think so. Everybody's got different times. There were people that had 4.7 times on Dre Greenlaw. The Niners claimed they had a 4.5 time on him. He went in the 5th round. He's a Pro Bowler. He's a great player. Dre Greenlaw is a phenomenal linebacker. And whatever speed he ran for the stopwatch, he plays 4.5. So, sometimes you just got to factor those things in. Roll somebody into South Bend and see Gregus Khan says, I'm here in South Bend, and he plays faster than that time. Oh, there's no doubt. He's a tremendous player. And NFL scouts they are impacted by the times, but not that much. Michael Mayer is still going to go in the 1st round. In a very good tight end group, he's the best. And I think he's one of the safest players in the draft. Now, I don't know if I could take him in the top 10, top 12, like I was thinking early on. But if I had to pick in, 22, hell yeah, I'm taking Michael Mayer. And I believe that he's going to have a really, really good NFL career. I'd be shocked if he didn't. All right. We are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Marin County. They're in Corte Madera, open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're also open in Emeryville in the Emeryville Public Marketplace. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Damon. Thanks to Mary. Thanks to all the people at Pig and a Pickle. Get the brisket. The pulled pork's amazing. The barbecue chicken. The homemade sausages. It's all phenomenal. They've got a kids menu. They do catering. You can order out. Phenomenal product. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. What does the restaurant look like? People ask. Here it is. We're also brought to you by Telmetrics, TELMETRIX.co. If you hurt your shoulder, you hurt you pull a muscle in your chest, or you hurt your elbow, you don't want to go to the ER, you don't need to go to the doctor, you don't want to go to urgent care, you just feel like you need some more information on how to rehabilitate your injury at home, check this out as a resource. I think you're really going to like it. Telmetrics.co. Once again, TELMETRIX.co. And last but certainly not least, special thanks to the sponsor of today's show, New York Style Italian Sausage. What a product. Whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo, you can't go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. often imitated, never equaled. They're a proud sponsor of today's show and are a proud sponsor of our trip to Scottsdale this month. Make sure you check them out at NewYorkStyleSausage.com. Give me a little Pasquale, they said.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, that's going to do it for the Krueger Show of this episode. And by the way, we are approaching 16,000 subs. So please, if you have yet to like and subscribe, please like and subscribe. If you hit like, that will just help the algorithm have more people find our channel. And if you hit subscribe, you'll be notified if you hit the notification bell every single time we go live. And right now, I'm looking it up, but I think we have 15,500, 15,600, something like that. We're approaching 16,000 subs. All right, what do we have left to do on the channel today? Well, it's a busy day in sports. Of course, we got the NCAA tournament starting up again at the Sweet 16 tomorrow, but we got the Warriors tonight. So the Warriors take on the Mavericks at 4:30. We'll go live after the game, talking Warriors, talking more about the sports happenings of the day. So look for that tonight, right around 7:30. We'll be on tonight on the Krueger Show. And also at 2 o'clock, and roughly a little bit less than 90 minutes from now, Wayne Breezy's in the house. That's right, Wayne Breezy. I wanted to hook up with Wayne the last couple of weeks. We were going to try to do something on his channel. We're going to do something regularly on his channel as well. But he's stopping by on this channel, the Krueger Show, at 2 p.m. today. So more Niner discussion in about 90 minutes with Wayne Breezy, one of my favorite Niner content creators. By the way, that content creator contest, I went down today. I lost to Grant Cohn. I was hoping that maybe we could pull it out, but come on. The man's got 60,000 subs. He's got a big head start in the YouTube game on me and everybody else. We got this one from Sweet Potato. Breezy is my man. Sweet. He'll be here at 2 o'clock. But yeah, lost to Grant, who now goes up against Mayoko. Thanks to everybody who voted for me in that contest. I do appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate you supporting me. There were people who were like, man, you should have been in the finals. You know what? As I said, Grant is a force of nature at this point. I expect Grant to win the entire thing. All right, that does it for us. Join us at 2 o'clock for Wayne Breezy. Until then, we're out. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you at 2.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle.